Afternoon, good evening, morning, whenever y'all are watching this. I Today we're going to be talking about the diversity, crafting a diverse class in difficult times for Ardyn College. I apologize about my voice. It's actually still healing from Battle of the Piney Woods. And B, I apologize if you hear barking or anything of that nature. My neighbor kids think it's really fun idea to run in between the houses that are being built right next door, and my dogs really don't like that. Today we are going to talk about um, what we can do to address the issues that have um, been plaguing Ardyn College when it comes to the lack of diversity and inclusion. And they also believe that their rankings aren't really helping the situation. So we've been tasked as dean to come up with a task force of individuals that we think can help meet the challenge of figuring out what the issues are, what we can do to increase recruitment of a diverse student body. Um, I find this to be just a rather interesting topic because I think there's a lot of colleges that see this type of issue. Um, but who will be on the task force? Honestly, this task force doesn't need to be a bunch of administrators talking at one another. They need to be student leaders, and especially those that are involved in organizations that are specifically for diverse populations, such as um, uh, different Hispanic serving organizations, as well as LGBTQ plus, all of those, um, to kind of get a climate survey of how do you feel? What do you think is the issue? Now, mind you, like a climate survey could at some point eventually go out to the whole campus, but you really want that focus group of those students, and you would need, maybe a couple of trusted administrators to kind of be there to help facilitate ideas and thoughts for the students. I know that that's kind of how I operate is I want to, just make sure that there are other people in the room that students are really comfortable with, because if you start putting like you know, vice presidents and whatnot on task force with students, it kind of gets intimidating for the students, and they feel as though they can't really talk. So clearly, that's who won't be on there. I know that some people might find that controversial for me to say that, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to increase recruitment for diverse student bodies, or for a diverse student body. So why wouldn't you go to the source? Like, why wouldn't you talk to the students? Um, and when it comes to the next part of this will be I can get it challenges, organization and recruitment. um, Obviously some of the challenges that we're going to face is the very poor publicity in the way that this was handled. um, I'm aware that there definitely should have been some type of training in place, because I feel like the professor could have handled that better in the classroom setting. um, there's a way to facilitate open dialogue without having it escalate, and clearly that might just be some kind of training that needs to be implemented. uh, I don't, however, there's the argument for academic freedom that they said he can't use his book anymore. No, I mean, I understand why he was upset. um, Maybe the article, if it had been geared more towards the fact that he hadn't um, been given the tools and the skills to handle such a situation, maybe it wouldn't have gotten to the point that it did. And I think we're talking about like what is the plan to recruit more minority students to the college, but you've got to start with what you already have. This was an argument that I had at my past campus, and something that I still am obviously a big advocate for. We all have these, diversity in recruitment hiring statements, and, hiring for diversity. And, wow, that's all well and good, but what about inclusion? What are you doing once you get here to make those diverse populations feel as though they are a part of the campus culture? In my prior institution, you could go up to, you know, anyone that they were hired specifically for diversity, but they also feel like they are the token person of color in any given situation, because they have never been in a situation where they felt as though they were completely, like, there was this level of inclusion that was unmatched. And that's probably what's going on with the students now. They're seeing this lack of proper response. Therefore, that inclusion is not there, which is radiating. And, I read where, the president doesn't understand. He supports the diversity club. There's a difference between supporting it, engaging with them. And I don't think that this president really truly understands the difference. Same with, recruitment for diversity and then inclusivity once you have those folks here. They're not interchangeable terms. You can't just say, oh yeah, I support the diversity and inclusion club, but, never really actively take part in any of it. I think that's a lot of the problem that I'm seeing here is the follow-up. It is the wraparound services. It is following through on everything. And, the world is becoming, we're constantly diversifying more and more and more and more. And so I really think it's a part of it's part of the college's best interest also to, work with organizations outside of the college to be like, hey, what can we do better? What can we do better to serve students of said population? And there's no harm in doing things like that because, you might become completely blind to certain things, and something so simple can make such a big difference. But I think if they were already within a situation where that fight escalated, there's something else that we don't know about from this particular scenario. That one fight that made national news, there's other things under the surface. Obviously there's been other rumblings and whatnot, so this isn't a new thing, the lack of inclusion and diversity. It's just it's becoming more prominent with this particular incoming cohort of students, clearly from the last few years. And so I really think that you've got to focus on inclusion. And some of the challenges that you're going to face with this is that students may not even want to be a part of something like this because it could be considered like, oh, why are you working with a racist institution, like, oh, they're going to try to be diverse. It's all those, like, the rhetoric that 18 to 22 year olds can come up with to kind of down on one another. So that's what I'm thinking when it comes to the recruitment plan. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I can't exactly lay out a year 1, 2, and 3 for you. It's a continuous cycle of learning and understanding and, professional development, understanding best inclusion practices, and understanding what it is that your students need that year, because it's not going to look the same. I mean, for example, working at community college, we always talk about how, our student crops are brand new every 2 years. They truly are. And trends change and things change, and what each student population needs changes. So, final outcomes and implications. So when we talk about implications, we're like financial, political, organizational, community, enrollment, media. Like, there's so many things to think about. I think that organizationally some things change, but I think the community aspect is one of the big implications, but it's also could be a positive one. Obviously, if you really get the community involved with whatever decisions, planning is decided, that's where you can get a lot of buy-in and a lot of chit chat and a lot of word spreading and things of that nature. Enrollment, I mean, to be fair, Rome wasn't built in a day, okay? I don't think that their enrollment numbers are going to change overnight or even potentially in the next few years. You could take some time. It's just kind of like, this is a stupid way to equate it, but just kind of like when the Cubs rebuilt their team back in 2011 to win the 2016 World Series. Like, that's exactly what Theo Epstein's plan was. It was a 5-year rebuild, and it wasn't going to look pretty at first. And that's kind of the same situation here. Financially speaking, I mean, that one's questionable, because if you can't get donors what they want, donors will put their money somewhere else. And so there's gotta be some give and take. And so taking the time to explain this plan that we, come up with, to the donors, to the alumni association, all of that, is really important. And I think also potentially creating a position related to admissions of diverse populations and groups, and maybe making that like a focus, maybe not permanently, but maybe while we're attempting this quote unquote rebuild, could be a potential plan, depending on funding. Politically, anything colleges do always is political, whether or not it's meant to be, or even if it is meant to be, because we're always seen as what one individual does within an organization represents the entirety of the organization. And so if we have people out here that are doing recruiting for XYZ and somebody doesn't like it, somebody's going to complain, somebody's going to complain to somebody else. Like, that's just how things work. And as institutions of higher education, we kind of like learn to go with the flow, obviously, because we deal with it. We're never going to make everybody happy. And so there's a lot of implications there. The media implication, the media could take it, the media, I mean, it could go either way. It could be seen as, oh, look at them, they're trying to grow, or, oh, look at them, they're running, trying to, fix their problem with their tail tucked between their legs. So at the end of the day, I don't think there's exactly a right answer to any of this, aside from focusing on inclusion and making sure that the students' experience is the best that it possibly can be. Because if you start there, that's, again, where it starts, is with the effect you're having on the students that are currently there, and that's how the word spreads. So I think that focusing on inclusion rather than recruiting for diversity is a big deal, and really focusing on the needs and the wants of the students. That's the thing, is I'm not hearing students be sat down with and asked, like, hey, student, what do you want? And again, they're the best free resource that we have. So that's just my opinion on the situation. I might have probably gone a little bit off topic, off on a tangent. I just kind of get frustrated when it comes to the idea of recruitment for diverse student bodies. It's, if you are behaving in the proper manner, you will have a diverse student body, excuse me. You just have to, it's the whole, if you build it, they will come. You have got to create an inclusive environment in order for people to feel welcome, and as though they want to come to school there. So again, I might have missed the whole point of this. I hope I didn't. But that is my rant. And again, I apologize for my voice. I sound awful. Thank you for listening, and y'all have a wonderful evening.